Hi, y'all. Welcome again to the Winding Down podcast, and thank you for 800 plus subscribers. We really do appreciate the support, the comments that y'all have made. And speaking of comments, on our last video, growing up in the Philippines, we noticed that ang daming na-comment, daming nag-share ng opinions nila, and we're very grateful for that because the main reason we actually started this podcast is to start a dialogue, a conversation. So we wanted to choose 10 top comments that we wanted to have a conversation around. And the first comment that we chose that I personally liked is don't comment. And basically, this user said, watch out, eggshells everywhere, great topic, definitely an elephant in the room subject. So, feeling ko, the reason why I actually really like this comment is because I think that rings true for every culture, regardless of the country, because it's a very sensitive topic. And people tend to get defensive, when their culture, their identity is being criticized. But I think what we should understand of what I've come to realize is that two things can be true at once. A culture can be very great, it can have a lot of upsides, but it can also have downsides as well. And I don't think it should be an eggshell or like an elephant in the room kind of topic, because I feel like for us to progress as a people, we should always be open-minded para we can be better people at the end of the day. But that's just my opinion, and yeah, that's why I chose this comment.
For the second group of comments, because they're the same theme, and I would just like to address the comments about, me not knowing Tagalog and how I should be ashamed of that. I believe, and I said this in the last podcast, that I should be criticized for not knowing Tagalog. Now, when I say I don't speak Tagalog, it doesn't mean I have, no association with Tagalog. I understand Tagalog. I'm just not very good at speaking it. And one thing that I should do, and I should work on it, I've been trying to work on it, is practicing speaking it. However, a dialogue that hasn't been talked about a lot is when you're trying to learn a language, I believe Liz and Becca have experienced this too. If you mispronounce things, there is a not necessarily welcoming, feedback response there. And so when I say I'm embarrassed to speak Tagalog, I don't mean, I'm embarrassed to speak it. I mean, I'm embarrassed at how bad I am at speaking it. And I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And to be honest, just to add on there, I think it's also the same for us, but just the other way around, because we grew up learning Hiligaynon, not, really by choice, because when you're younger, you're just sponges and basically feed off of whatever you hear in your surroundings. So if you're only hearing English, the obvious outcome is that you're going to speak English most of the time. If you're hearing Tagalog or Hiligaynon, you're going to learn how to speak that. So, hi guys, Liz here with the Winding Down podcast. Gusto ko lang mag-quick intro and quick disclaimer lang. So the video upcoming, medyo lack of energy kasi busy with work and all. Pero naglaban pa rin just to provide priority to your comments. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stick around, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And yeah, on to the video. It's just about how you grew up, which, I don't think we can fault anyone for. Yeah, so the third one is this comment. Actually, natawa talaga ako sa comment na to. Pero gets ko, makes sense, because if most of the black people that he or she met, merong body odor, then that I get. Pero for me, I wanted to, respond to this comment because I just want to put a PSA that it's not all black people that have body odor, right? And it's not a black thing or white thing or an Indian thing. Everybody can have body odor and everybody cannot. So I think we need to be more sensitive and open-minded when asking these questions, because just because you met most of the people with this skin color that has it doesn't mean I or Liz or Chase has body odor. So
I think one other thing to say about this question is that we feel that it wasn't very well phrased. Now, obviously, there's a very large chance that this person didn't mean any harm by asking this question. They're really out of curiosity.
Yeah.
However, with the way it is phrased, it is hard to it's easy to misconstrue it as elsewhere.
Yes. And so this comment, we wanted to just touch on it with willing to learn Tagalog. And I think also, just to circle back with what Liz said, and what Chase said. So for example, Chase doesn't know how to speak Tagalog, right? But that's because of his surroundings. In Manila, most people speak English. His dad is American, so there's a reason.
Yeah.
Well, with us, we grew up in Iloilo, right? Barotag Viejo, as I said in the last channel. So we weren't, it's not like we were willing to learn. Wala kaming choice, guys, kasi no one wanted to speak English with us. So in order for us to like have a better life in like socializing with our classmates, the people around us, we had to learn the language. So I just wanted to, clarify that it's not, I'm grateful that I know how to speak it, but it's not like, we just didn't have a choice. That's why we had to learn it.
I would just like to say, like here in Manila specifically, it is so comfortable here to speak English. Everywhere I go, everyone knows how to speak English. And so growing up, there was no exposure to Tagalog. I think that's like a big, misconception that, we just wanted to clear up.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the other comments that I actually really appreciate and just want to highlight is these comments. Salamat talaga, guys, for saying things like this. And the reason why na highlight namin is because, when we grew up, this wasn't really a common theme. Every time we would receive a compliment before, there was always a backhanded compliment like, ay, ang ganda nyo, kaso ano, ang itim nyo, or you guys would have been prettier if, you were using this whitening soap or whatever. So things like that. And I know it's just not here. That's like more so like a Southeast Asian thing. Actually, it's also becoming very rampant in Africa as well. And the thing is, there's another side to it, because a lot of, for example, Europeans or Americans, they like to do tanning as well. So it's not like one is bad and the other is good. But I feel like if people want to make a decision to, lighting their skin or darkening their skin, that's up to you. But what I did not appreciate growing up is when those insecurities are projected on me. Because I'm very comfortable in my skin. Becca's very comfortable in her skin. Chase is comfortable in her skin. I think we should just live and let live, but not project our insecurities on others. So thank you so much, Salamat talaga, for these comments. We did appreciate that.
On the note about the whitening cream and not projecting your own insecurities upon others, just because you haven't, personally experienced someone saying something like that to you doesn't mean that someone else hasn't experienced it. I think, you shouldn't deny someone else's reality based off your own expectations. And that's something that I always hold true whenever I talk to anyone. Because when I talk to someone and I learn about something that, I have no knowledge about, I shouldn't go and say, no, that didn't happen because, that couldn't have happened. I know those people, There's no way of knowing. You can't know someone's reality. And you shouldn't deny it. Going on to the next set of comments, or the next set of the comment, this seems to be a response to the comment I made about, benefits between things. And while I'm not sure whether this was an American or a Filipino responding, I can say that this is a lot of room for discussion, I believe, because this person, he states, for a white old guy marrying a young Filipina, they have advantages. The old guy gets younger, and then they actually proceed to list advantages for the Filipina. And one of the things that we want to discuss here, which sort of ties into the things we were discussing in the first podcast, is the mestiza kids and why this is actually a benefit.
Yeah, so I guess I wouldn't want to call this problematic, but it kind of, proves the point that I'm making as to, why having mestizo/mestiza kids is even considered an advantage. Having kids in general, I think that's a blessing and should be considered an advantage in general. But, I think just because of, the colonial mentality, I saw a lot of people, leave those type of comments as to, the why, which, I definitely understand. But I feel like as a people, we need to, if we're proud of who we are, we need to stick to that. We shouldn't see having half white kids as an advantage over being full Filipino. I think Filipinos are beautiful. They come from different backgrounds, but we shouldn't push this like mentality as to white is superior and that's considered an advantage, because that is very problematic, especially to, the majority of the populace in this country. So parang ganon, like I feel like dapat we should strive more to be comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah, and I believe as Filipino citizens, as we all three of us are actually, we should be proud that we are here, and we shouldn't feel the need to sort of try to be different. Because I've noticed a lot of my Filipino friends, at least, they always try to bring up how they're half this or they're part that, and even regardless of whether it's true or not, it seems to be something that they cling to, and we feel that that's like a big problem with the Filipino identity. There's a insecurity there, which causes us to react, negatively to criticism.
So another comment that we wanted to respond to was this one. So regarding like it depends daw of yung how we like where you grew up. It's a different experience for foreigners, and that's exactly what we said in the last podcast, guys. So perfect example, kami ni Liz tapos si Chase. So diba si Chase sa Manila siya lumaki, diba? So that's why he had his own different experience, whereas we, syempre din naman BGC, more on, but province, very provincial like area, so that's why we had a different experience. So I guess this was more of an emphasis, so we just wanted to highlight this to like emphasize what we were saying now. It really depends on where you are in the Philippines, because different provinces have different cultures, so it really shapes you as a person. But again, we're all grateful like for each of our backgrounds, because that makes us who we are as people. So the ninth comment was.
So we're here.
So this comment, first just to clarify again, so Chase wasn't born here, he was born in the States. So just a quick clarification on that. But why we chose this comment is because, I did appreciate that this person asked, how we feel about Nigeria, have we visited, if not, do we plan on it, things like that, so Nigeria. So just to provide context, so we were born in Nigeria and we moved here when we were like around 10, 11, 9, mga ganon. And then, obviously, we do consider ourselves as Nigerians as well. I love Nigeria. I think it's a beautiful country. Recommend, kung gusto nyo mag-visit, push nyo lang yan. But as I was saying earlier in the video as well, that to every country, to every culture, there are great parts of the culture and there are also problematic parts. From my experience, I've noticed that just because it's embedded in our culture, a lot of things like homophobia or misogyny sometimes can be an aspect that kind of goes back to just the way, the culture is. I'm not saying all parts of Nigeria, but it is a common theme sometimes. And to be honest, like when me and Becca first moved to the Philippines, yung first event na namin is Miss Gay. And while I was in Nigeria, I had never met or been exposed to a gay person. So that was like a culture shock in itself. And parang ganon. So that exposure to another culture, it helps you like broaden your mind and your mentality. And I think that's a good thing, to be exposed to different, parts of the world, because it pops you out of that bubble, basically. I think we all have our bubbles, different kind of bubbles, and it popped me out of that bubble. And I was so grateful to experience that. So yeah, that's I guess my experience in Nigeria. I would want to go back as well just to visit. But ikaw dai, anong kailan mo sa Nigeria? For me, kasi sabi niya, do you think your life would be different if you grew up there? And yes, 100%. Because in the last video we said that the place you're surrounding like molds you as a person. So if we grew up in Nigeria, I'm not sure if it would be for the better or for the worse, because there are so many things in the Philippines that I learned here that I could not have learned in Nigeria. So I think we would have been very different if we grew up in Nigeria.
That being said, also with me, if I grew up in the US, I know this wasn't the question I was asked, but I think I would definitely be very different, because there's a lot of values that I hold that are definitely like Filipino, Asian values here. And I think I benefit from that. The fact that I grew up here and, I got exposed to, both the US culture as well as the Filipino culture, however, bubbly it is. I say that because I did grow up within a sort of bubble space within, the Manila area. And I think that had I grown up in the US, I might have ended up like a lot of those people I don't tend to respect on the internet. frankly, some of those, the questionable people who you see on the news or on TikTok and other things. Not everybody, obviously, because there are respectable people from everywhere, as I think everyone knows that.
Yeah. So for the last comment, guys, that we want to touch on was this one. So he or she actually asked like a lot of good questions. So what do you love growing up? Best experience here in the Philippines? What are your challenges? School experience, dating experience, and advice that you would give to someone who would move here? So for the dating experience, guys, just we shot a podcast talking about our dating experience there. So baka naman guys, ano nyo lang, support. And then yung for the rest, I guess I'll touch on like advice. So if you're a foreigner or if you're, Filipino who wants to move back home, my advice is that the Philippines is like a very welcoming culture. Like if you want to move here, then you would for sure, feel welcomed. I would also just advise on, even again, if you don't know how to speak the language, just because everyone here is so good in English, you wouldn't have a problem with that. And I guess the best advice I can give is just to embrace the culture. Just embrace it with the negative, the positive, because no country is perfect. But I think if you want to come here and fully embrace it, then you fully enjoy and see the the beauty with Filipinos and the Philippines. That's my advice. Yeah, and again with this podcast, more definitely to come. With our experiences here, with things we want to touch on. We'll also be having guests, to touch on their experience because it's always good to see yung ibang perspective ng ibang tao. And we also have a video coming up regarding the nightlife because
In Makati and in
Makati
BGC.
we like to
We like to frequent the nightlife in the
Palalasing
weekends.
kami guys. So check that one out. But again, thank you so much for your comments, for subscribing, for your likes, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Yeah.